I was scrolling through on my Instagram page and I came across a post talking about Flint, Michigan. Now you're seeing this image right here. Now, if you remember, a few years ago, Time Magazine actually posted this up of this little boy who definitely was sick from the contaminated water in Flint, Michigan, that pretty much made the airwaves. I think it was back in 2014 when all of it really popped off. But to be honest, the problem in Flint, Michigan was happening before then. And I haven't read the article yet that I'm going to read, but what's now coming out, I say how convenient of them to mention this now, considering many of these officials are no longer there. The name of the article says Supreme Court allows Flint water lawsuits to move forward. Officials not quote unquote immune. My question is, why now? I always question timing. Many of the officials that were behind this are no longer officials. They're no longer there. And as far as I'm concerned, if Rick the Snake Snyder, the governor, is not one of those officials that they can sue, then this whole thing is pointless, because he lied and claimed he didn't know what was going on when he know good and goddamn well what was going on in that in that city, but chose not to do anything about it. These people up there suffered for years behind contaminated, poisoned water. And they allowed this to happen in an American city where quote unquote Americans were at, but they want to do everything they possibly can for these illegal ass immigrants. Give them jobs, give them sanctuary, give them whatever, something that should have been given to people like the ones who were affected by this. But oh no. And we know why they didn't do that. Look at the picture. Most of the people affected by that water look just like this little boy in the picture. That was basically trying to cleanse Flint out. I've always told people that if they wanted to do gentrification, which it seems like they're trying to do, this was their way of doing it. I'm telling you, gentrification is a powerful thing, and they will do whatever it takes to get you up out of there to make sure that it happens, even if it affects your health. Now, I'm going to go ahead and read this article, and something tells me I'm not going to like what I'm going to read, but we'll find out. The Supreme Court on Tuesday cleared the way for water crisis victims to sue state and local government officials in Flint, Michigan. For years, Flint city officials and state regulators have argued that they are protected by qualified immunity from being sued for their role in the water contamination crisis, but lower courts have ruled to the contrary. Now listen to that. They said they have argued that they are protected by qualified immunity. Now, that's something I have recently talked about on my channel that involves some cops out in California when they basically robbed these people of thousands of dollars and nothing happened to them. They just basically got away with robbery, and they claim that qualified immunity too. You know, it's so funny that these individuals claim that their jobs are so hard and everything like that, but they got stuff like qualified immunity that basically lets them get away with illegal activity. But they want to claim that they have such rough jobs. So basically, they've been using that a qualified immunity line for all this time to not suffer the consequences of their actions. Or I'm sorry, well, their lack of action, because they didn't take any action when it came to these individuals. Now, I bet you if the people that was affected by this crisis were palm colored, they would have jumped right to the front of the line and made sure that this thing was dealt with years ago. But they let this thing fester on. That's why I can't stand Rick the Snake Snyder. He sat up there, tried to look all dumbfounded and act like he didn't know what was going on. If you didn't know what was going on as governor, you are incompetent and you need to step down from your position and put somebody else in there who's more qualified for the position, who knows what the hell is going on. But he knew what was going on. And as far as I'm concerned, Rick the Snake Snyder and all his little Slytherin friends were there for nothing more than a check. Is he even in jail? Like, I know that's a rhetorical question, but something just tells me that he ain't. In refusing to take up a pair of cases involving the lead-tainted water, the Supreme Court has upheld those lower court rulings. Attorney Michael Pitt co-led counsel on the class action lawsuit, which includes thousands of Flint residents suing for damages from the 2014 incident, welcomed the decision as a major victory. He said it's time for the people of Flint to start feeling like they are going to get their day in court. Unfortunately, it took them, 6 years for it to happen. Pitt added that his clients have thus far been denied justice. The initial lawsuit was turned away by the High Court was filed in 2016. It argues officials, including then Governor Rick the Snake Snyder, acted indifferently to the risk of bodily harm residents face when they were exposed to high levels of lead and other contaminants after the city's drinking water source was switched to draw from the Flint River in 2014. The move was made without properly treating pipes for corrosion, letting lead and bacteria into the water supply. And let me also add in here, the article may mention it, may not, but I'm going to mention it right now. Remember, the people up there who were affected by that water were still required by the city of Flint and whoever their water supplier is to pay that not monthly, but that every 3-month bill. So basically, they were working with a double-edged sword. They either could A, deal with water, but it was contaminated, or B, have no water at all. That's why a lot of people, when that was going on, were shipping thousands on top of thousands of gallons of water bottles and everything to the people up there so they could have water to drink and to bathe with. Those people up there could not drink that water. They couldn't bathe with that water. You see how the boy looks kind of bruised in this picture? That's what the water did. Just imagine, if you had to deal with that on a daily basis. And the thing is, this is now just getting more traction. Notice that after a while, people stopped talking about it. Like after 2016, you really didn't hear about it in 2017 or 2018. Hell, you didn't hear it at all in 2019. Now it's coming back to the surface. So it makes me wonder what's going on to make them say, hey, we'll finally look at it. Something had to have happened, but not in a good way. Not in the way that would be, in my opinion, beneficial to the victims. In an April 2019 ruling, U.S. District Judge Judith Levy ruled Governor the Snake Snyder was indifferent because instead of mitigating the risk of harm caused by the contaminated water, he covered it up. In private, he worried about the need to return Flint to Detroit's water system and the political implications of the crisis, but in public, he denied all knowledge despite being aware of the developing crisis. As a result, plaintiffs were lured into a false sense of security. More than a year later, the city switched to using water from Lake Huron, but that came too late to prevent dozens of fatalities. During the period Flint's tap water came from Flint's water, a Legionnaire's disease outbreak occurred, killing at least 12 people. Dozens of others were hospitalized. Although government officials initially claimed the water was safe to drink, 18 months later they admitted it was not. It wasn't until late 2016 that the city's water supply finally met federal safety standards. Though some residents remain skeptical of those findings. Defense attorney Pitt says it could be another year before an actual trial begins. So now they're talking about this is just getting the trial on the table, but the actual trial probably won't start until 2021, which means the people there are going to have to go through this cycle for a whole year, just waiting to be before a judge. The events in Flint have triggered scores of Midwest cities to remove aging lead water pipes. As Tom Nelter of the Environmental Defense Fund told WBEZ's Monica Ng, our country has an estimated 6 million lead service lines, and it's like drinking water through a lead straw. So where people have them is one of the most significant sources of lead in drinking water. About 180 cities and towns across the country are taking action to remove harmful pipes. In Flint, crews have been working to replace old lead and galvanized service lines with copper pipes. This is just absolutely ridiculous. But we know what it really is about. We know what's going on. They can say whatever they want, but we know that it's because the people up there look like the boy in this picture. And it's funny because you have a lot of people out there who claim that they're a part of all these causes and everything like that, but they want to be a part of these causes of stuff that's happening overseas and everything. I'm like, we got stuff going on over here. This being one of them. that was completely and utterly forgotten about. Like, it had its little run and then they moved on to the next thing. And the thing is, they never went back to this. They just stayed off of it. Just like Rick the Snake Snyder tried to cover it up. He tried. By claiming he did not know what was going on, we already knew he was lying. Like, how are you the governor and you don't know what's going on in your own city? Like, that's just complete incompetence on your part. But I feel, like I said, I felt bad, and I still do, for these people that had to suffer for years and are still suffering behind this. Because this could have been avoided. And the fact that it didn't get as much traction as it should, especially with as how dangerous as it is, then it is, you know, what it is. But it shouldn't surprise anyone, because look at that opioid plague. As much as I say I feel nothing about it, look at how little they never talk about that. Sure, I talk about it in a jokingly way, and y'all know my reasoning as to why I do that. So if I know that they're not going to talk about that, and that's literally affecting mainly palm-colored people, I know they wouldn't talk about this. And as a matter of fact, I'm surprised they actually talked about this more than that opioid plague. That's just America telling its citizens, you know, fuck you and fuck off. Just pay me what I need. Just pay what you owe and keep it moving. America I always said, America, if it was a person, would be nothing more than a racist drag with an opioid addiction. And my imagery of that still stands to this day. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. Have your notifications turned on, and I will talk to you in the next one.